All right, so today we're going to move on from our one-step equations to our two-step equations. So our objective at the end of today is that we know how to work through and solve two-step equations. All right, so for two-step equations, you still need to be able to remember your pairs of inverses. So you have multiplication and division. Multiplication is used to get rid of division, and division is used to get rid of multiplication. The same with addition and subtraction. Addition is used to get rid of subtraction, and subtraction is used to get rid of addition. So, two-step equations, you still are using your inverses to get rid of different portions so you can get your variable, isolate your variable. So, your steps are to 1, locate the variable. And these are your steps for problems that look like this. 1, locate the variable. 2, you're going to undo the addition to remove Q, and then you would undo the multiplication or division to remove P, and then you would check your solution. So, and then if you notice, I would add this into the side somewhere. This works the way it does because in two-step equations, you are working the order of operation backwards. So you would get rid of your addition and subtraction first because that's the bottom of your order of operation, and then you would get rid of your multiplication and your division. So let's look at some examples. So on this first one, we want to get rid of the addition and the subtraction first. And another analogy I use for the kids, this may help you, this may not. My kids are a little bit bigger, so it's less realistic than it was before. So I have a 2-year-old and I have a 4-year-old. And my 2-year-old, he clings on my leg. He stays on my side. My 4-year-old is wild, guys. So the analogy I use is my 2-year-old on my leg is the multiplication and division. He's fine. Now my 4-year-old likes to jump off tables and be crazy. So I need to worry about my 4-year-old across the room before I worry about my 2-year-old right there on my leg. So the addition and the subtraction are away from the variable and not attached to it. So those are what we're going to worry about first. And we're working PEMDAS backwards. So in order to, we're working it backwards because we're undoing what we did. So to do it, you do it in order of PEMDAS, but to undo it, you do PEMDAS backwards. So we're going to start by getting rid of our addition and subtraction. So I want to get rid of -2, and we're still going to use our inverses. To undo subtraction, we're going to add. So instead of -2, we're going to say +2. And what I do to one side, I have to do to both sides of that equal sign. And sometimes I feel like let's draw a line where our equal sign is, because one of the things I see for some reason is that you'll try to add 2 here and you'll try to add it twice on the same side. You'll do something funky and add it to the 9. So make sure when you're doing it to both sides, it's both sides of the equal sign, not 2 times on the same side. So we're going to add 2 here. So -2 plus 2 just cancels. So we're left with 9a on our left side equals, and then we're going to bring down. Well, actually, I lied. We're not going to bring down. We have to do it to our right side too. So what I do to the left side, I have to do to the right because we have our equal sign. So we're going to add 2 as well on our right side. So I have a positive and a negative. So we're going to subtract to keep the bigger sign. So 65 minus 2 is 63. And 65 is bigger, so it's going to stay negative. Now I have a simple one-step equation. I have multiplication attached to that variable because we're trying to get the variable by itself. So we're trying to get rid of everything on the same side as the variable. So now all I have is a times 9. Well, I want to know what a is, so I need to get rid of times 9. In order to get rid of multiplication, my inverse is division. So we're going to divide both sides by that 9. So we are left with a equals, because 9 divided by 9 is simply 1. So I could say 1a, or simply a. And then negative 63 divided by 9. Well, 63 divided by 9 is 7. And a positive and a negative is going to give me a negative. So I could say 1a equals -7, or simply a equals -7. All right, so let's look at number 2. Same thing. We're working our PEMDAS backwards because we want to undo it in the opposite order of what we did it. We're working backwards, so we're going to work PEMDAS backwards. So I need to start at the bottom here with my addition and subtraction. So I want to get rid of plus 7. So in order to get rid of plus 7, I am going to subtract 7 from the left side. I'm going to draw my line so I only do it once on the left and once on the right. So it's minus 7 on the left side and minus 7 on the right. So plus 7 minus 7 cancels to 0. So on the left side, we're left with 4x. And then 31 minus 7 is going to leave me with 24. So now I have negative 4x equals 24, and we have one of those one-step equations we've been doing. So in order to get rid of times negative 4, we're going to divide by negative 4. And we are left with x equals negative 6, because negative 4 divided by negative 4 is 1, so you could say 1x. And 24 divided by negative 4, well, 24 divided by 4 is 6. A positive and a negative is going to give me a negative. All right, let's look at another one. This time, this one has a variable being divided, but we still know with our order of operations, multiplication and division are on the same level. So we're still going to start on the back of our PEMDAS with our addition and subtraction, so we're going to get rid of minus 11. In order to get rid of subtraction, we have to use our inverse, which is addition. So plus 11. I'm going to draw my line for where my equal sign is, so I make sure I'm only doing it on the left side and the right side. So plus 11 on the left and plus 11 on the right. Minus 11 plus 11 cancels. And we are left with k divided by 3 equals, I have negative 5 plus 11. When I have a positive and a negative, we know we're going to subtract and keep the bigger sign. So 11 minus 5 is 6. 11 is bigger, so it's going to be positive 6. So then our last step is to get rid of that division. Our inverse of division is multiplication. So in order to get rid of this, we're going to say times 3. I'm going to put it over 1. So we know 3 times k is 3k, 1 times 3 is 3, and that 3 over 3 simply cancels out to 1. So I'm left with 1k equals, and what I did to the left side, I still have to do to the right side. And 6 times 3 is going to give me 18. So 1k equals 18, or simply k equals 18. Awesome. I'm going to do one more, and then I'm going to give you a chance to go ahead and do some on your own. So again, I have to work backwards. So I'm going to do my addition and subtraction before I do my multiplication and division. So real quick, I'm going to make this plus a negative so that I know I'm getting rid of that 23, because I see subtraction. But if I add 23 to 23, it will not get rid of 23. And I want to get rid of everything on the same side as that variable, not add more. So in order to get rid of 23, we're going to make sure our negative sign is attached to that variable and not our 23. So in order to get rid of this 23, we're going to subtract 23. We're going to draw our line, because what we do to one side, we have to do to both sides. 23 minus 23 is simply 0, so we are left with negative 5w on this right side. Bring down our equal sign, and I have 8 minus 23. So we're going to say plus a negative. And so when I have a positive and a negative, we know we need to subtract. Bless me. Oops, I blessed myself. All right. So when we have a positive and a negative, we're going to subtract and keep the bigger sign. So 23 minus 8 is 15. 23 is bigger, so it's going to be negative 15. And then we're going to go ahead in our last step. I have a multiplication attached to the variable, and I want my variable by myself. So in order to get rid of multiplication, we are going to divide. So 5 times w, so to get rid of times negative 5, we're going to divide by negative 5. But what I do to one side, I have to do to both sides. So negative 5 divided by negative 5 is simply 1. So 1w on that right side. And then negative 15 divided by negative 5. Well, 15 divided by 5 is 3. And 2 negatives are going to give me a positive. So I am left with 3 equals 1w. W. All right, so I want you to go ahead and I want you to do 5 and 6 on your own. I want you to pause this now and work through them. And I'm going to give you a chance to get this pause, and then when you're done, you can unpause this and we will go through it together. All right, by now you should have had a chance to pause this and work through 5 and 6. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to work through them out. So you, if you haven't already, pause it so that when I go through this, you're just looking at what you've got and checking your answers. So we're working our PEMDAS backwards. I'm going to put this down here to remind us. So what that means is I'm going to start on the bottom. So we're going to do our addition and our subtraction first to get rid of it. So I have 8m minus 11. I know I want to get rid of everything on the same side as that variable because I want to know what m is. So in order to get rid of minus 11, because I have 8 times m, that minus 11, so we're working backwards. So we want to get rid of minus 11 to get rid of to get rid of subtraction. If you look in our PEMDAS, because they're on the same level, they are also each other's inverse. To get rid of subtraction, we're going to add. So I'm going to say plus 11. I'm going to draw my line so I know that I have to do it on my left side and on my right side. So then I have 8m minus 11 plus 11 cancel just to 0. So I have 8m. And again, minus 11 plus 11 equals 0. All right. And then I have 8m equals 0. So in order to get rid of multiplication, we're going to divide. So we're going to say divide by 8. Divide by 8. And we are left with m equals 0. 8 goes to nothing is still nothing. Did you get that right? Did the 0 throw you off? That's perfectly okay. That's what this is for. Do you see what you did wrong now? Awesome. If you didn't, please bring those questions to a small group. All right. So then on 6, again, we're still working backwards. So I see n divided by -4 plus 1. So before I can get rid of that division, I need to work backwards. I'm going to get rid of that addition. So I'm going to subtract this 1 from both sides. So I'm going to draw my line so I know that I'm only doing it once on the right and once on the left. So minus 1. 1 minus 1 is 0, so we're left with n minus 4 on this right side. I'm going to cross this out to show I've canceled it. Then I have -6 minus 1, so I'm going to make this plus a negative. So -6 plus -1, when you have 2 negatives, we know we're going to add them, and they're going to become a bigger negative. So then I'm left with -7 equals, because this is my equal line, n over -4. So in order to get rid of that division, we know we have to use our inverse property, which is multiplication. So times -4 times -4. So you could say -4 over -4n, and then -4 times -7 is going to give me, well, 4 times 7 is 28, and a positive and a negative and a negative are going to give me a positive. So I have 28 equals -4 over -4n. Well, -4 divided by -4 is just 1. So 28 equals 1n, or 28 equals n. Awesome. Did you get those right? If you didn't, do you see what you did wrong? If you don't see what you did wrong, circle it. Please ask these questions in guided practice. All right. So these are just a little bit different. The only difference between these and the ones we just saw are that you have fractions and decimals, because you are going to have equations with rational numbers. Still, those are not going away. So we're still going to work backwards. So I want to do my PEMDAS backwards. So before I can get rid of that multiplication, I have to get rid of my addition, because we're working backwards. So in order to get rid of that addition, we need to subtract. So I'm going to subtract 9 from my left side and 9 from my right side. So I'm left with 0.4x equals 9 minus 9 is 0, and 11 minus 9 is 2. So now I have 0.4x equals 2. Those are being multiplied. What's my inverse of multiplication? Division. Perfect. So we're going to divide both sides by 0.4. Divide 0.4. Well, 0.4 divided by 0.4 is simply 1. So we have 1x on that left side. And let's go ahead and figure out what 2 divided by 0.4 is. So I know my top dog goes in the house. 0.4 goes on the outside. So before I can divide, what do I have to do? That's right. We have to move the decimal to the right because I cannot have a decimal in my divisor. And what I do to that, I have to do to my dividend. All right, so now I have 4 into 20. Well, I know 4 goes into 20 5 times. So we're left with x equals 5. Awesome. All right, so now let's go ahead. I'm going to do 10. So again, I have multiplication and this negative 10. So I'm going to go ahead and make this plus a negative so I don't get any sort of sign confusion. I want to get rid of a negative 10. So how would I zero out a negative 10? Well, I would add 10. So I could say minus a negative or plus 10 because negative 10, positive 10 are going to cancel out. So plus 10 on both sides. Draw my equal line. So negative 18 and positive 10, positive negative, subtract and keep the bigger sign. So 18 minus 10 is 8, and 18 is bigger, so it's going to be negative 8. Negative 10 and positive 10 cancel, so on that right side, all I'm left with is that negative 1.5 m. All right, so now I have multiplication, and I get rid of multiplication with division. So I'm going to divide both sides by that negative 1.5. Divide by negative 1.5. Well, negative 1.5 divided by negative 1.5 is simply m's, or simply 1, so you could put m or 1m. And then my last step is to go ahead and divide negative 8 by 1.5. So, and it's negative 1.5. So we know right off the bat a negative and a negative. Our answer is going to be positive. So let's see, 1.5 into 8, because 8 is on the top. So I need to go ahead and move this one to the right. Because I move that, I have to move this one to the right. Because I have no numbers there, we're going to put a 0. All right, so now I have 15 into 80. I know 15, let's see, 15, 30, 45, 60, 75. So 15 times 5 is 75. Borrow, 10 minus 5 is 5. And this is 7. And we're going to bring down to 0. So we're going to add our decimal in. So bring down this 0. 15 goes into 50. 15, 30, 45. So 3 times. And 45. And I got 5 again. So what I know is going to happen is that I'm going to keep getting that 3. So I can go ahead and say that 1m is equal to 5.3 repeating. Awesome. So 11, I'm still working backwards. I want to get rid of my addition and subtraction first because it's at the bottom of PEMDAS and we're working backwards. So before I can get rid of that division with the V, I have to get rid of the addition. So to get rid of plus 14, I have to subtract 14 from both the left side and the right side. So 14 minus 14 is 0. So on that left side, I have V divided by 0, negative 0.8, equals 39 minus 14 is 25. And then my last step, I need to get rid of the division. My inverse of division is multiplication. So times 0.8, that cancels. You say 0.8 over 0.8 if you want. So V 0.8, 0.8, which cancels to 1. So 1V. And then negative 25 also divided by 0.8. and both of these are negative. Actually, sorry. 0.8 is negative, 25 is positive. So I know that my answer is going to be negative, so I'm going to put equals negative so I don't forget. And then 8.8 into 25. I know that I cannot have a decimal in my divisor, so I have to move it one to the left. And when I do that, I have to additionally move this to the left. I'm going to go ahead and put my decimal up to start with so I don't forget about it. 8 goes into 25 3 times, which is 24. And then 5 minus 4 is 1. 2 minus 2 is 0. Bring down that 1. 8 goes into 10 one time, which is 8. With 2 left over, we're going to bring down a 0. 8 goes into 20 2 times, which is 16. 20 minus 16 is 4. Bring down one more 0. And 8 goes into 40 5 times, which is 40. So 40 minus 40 is 0. So 1V is equal to negative 31.25. All right. I'm going to give you a second. If you're still filling this out, you can go ahead and pause it and fill it out. All right, awesome. So I gave you a chance to do that. So now I'm going to erase it so I have room to do 12. So 12, we're still working backwards. We need to get rid of our addition and our subtraction before we get rid of multiplication or division. So I want to get rid of minus 7. In order to get rid of minus 7, I need to add 7 because that's our inverse. So plus 7 plus 7. So then I have 2/3 times x equals 5 plus 7 is 12. And then I have to get rid of x times 2/3. So in order to get rid of multiplication, we have to divide. Well, we know that we learned yesterday that dividing by a fraction is the same as multiplying by its reciprocal. So we're going to say both sides times this fraction flipped. So 3 over 2. So cancel. 3 goes into 3 once. 3 goes into 3 once. 2 goes into 2 once. 2 goes into 2 once. And we are left with 1x. And then what we do to the left side, we have to do the right side. So times 3 over 2. 12 times 3 is 36. 1 times 2 is 2. And 2 goes into 36 18 times. So we're left with x equals 18. Awesome, guys. All right, so I want you to go ahead. I want you to pause this and work through 13 and 14, and then I will go through it with you. And we have just a few more after this, I promise. Awesome. So your first step on 13, did you get rid of the 5/8 or the 9? That's right. We're still working PEMDAS backwards. So we need to get rid of our addition and our subtraction before we get rid of our multiplication and division. So we need to subtract 9 from the right side as well as the left side. So 9 minus 9 is 0. So this right side is just negative 5/8 C equal a line. So I knew it only do it once on the right side and once on the left side. Negative 1 minus 9 is the same as plus a negative. So we're adding two negatives to make a bigger negative. So we're left with negative 10. And then I want to get rid of that 5/8 times the C. And we know to get rid of multiplication, we divide. And dividing by a fraction is the same as multiplying it by its reciprocal. So we're going to flip that 5/8 and say both of these sides times negative, because we're keeping the negative sign, 8/5. So you could say negative times a negative is a positive. 8 times 5 is 40. 8 times 5 is 40. So 40C is still, and I don't know where I wrote equals. 40C, 40 divided by 40 is 1. So 1C. All right, so then I need to do the same thing to the left side as I did to my right. So negative 10 times negative 8 over 5. So negative 8 times negative 10 is positive 40 over 5. Because 5 times 1 is just 5. 40 over 5 is going to give me 8. So we're left with 8 is equal to 1C. Did you get that right? Awesome. If you didn't, do you see what you did wrong? If not, that's okay. This is the time to be making mistakes and ask questions. Please bring it to guided practice. All right, so 14, did you get rid of the 1/3 or the minus 16 first? Awesome. We're still working backwards with the order of operation to undo it. So we're going to get rid of that 16 first. So we get rid of subtraction. We need to use addition. So minus 16 plus 16 cancel out. And we're left with 1/3 m equals what I do to that left side, I also have to do the right side. So I have a negative plus a positive. So we know we're going to subtract and keep the bigger sign. So 16 minus 1 is 15, and 16 is bigger, so it's going to be positive. So again, we're getting rid of times a fraction. In order to get rid of multiplication, we divide, and dividing by the fraction is the same as saying times its reciprocal. So we're going to flip the fraction. You can say 3 over 3 m, which is simply 3 divided by 3 is 1. And then we can go ahead and go from there. What I do to that left side, I have to do to the right side. So 15 over 1 times 3 over 1 is 45. Over 1 or just 45. Because we had dropped the 1. So equals 45. So 1m is equal to 45. Did you get that right? If you didn't, do you see what you did wrong? Awesome. So I just want to show you one more thing. So sometimes your two-step equations will look like this. So we are still working PEMDAS backwards. So addition and subtraction, multiplication, division. This time the only difference is that this line right here, this division line, what that says is that whole first half is a parentheses. This is a type of grouping. It is grouping the top half. So the top half of that fraction is a group, which is parentheses. So before I can do my parentheses, I have to do my get rid of my division. So we're going to undo that multiplication or division, that p. In this case, it's division by multiplying both sides by p. And then I can work with my parentheses because we are still working backwards. So let's see how that works. So again, this division bar treats that whole first half as a group. It's grouped the top half from the bottom half. So before I can mess with my parentheses, because we're still working backwards, before I can work my parentheses, I have no addition or subtraction outside of my parentheses. So I'm going to get rid of my multiplication division. So to get rid of divided by 6, we're going to multiply 6. So I would have 6x minus 1 over 6. 6 divided by 6 is simply 1. So we're left with x minus 1 equals what I did to this side. I also have to do to this side. 2 times 6 is 12. So x minus 1 equals 12. So then my last step is to go ahead and get rid. Now that I have parentheses, now I can go from here to my parentheses. So inside of my parentheses, I have subtraction. In order to get rid of subtraction, I have to add. So plus 1 on the left and plus 1 on the right. So I'm left with x equals 13. Awesome. So then I'm going to do the same thing on 16. So I'm going to go ahead and say that this line creates that top half as its own set. It is a parenthesis set. That top half is a parenthesis. So we're still working backwards. So before I can do my parentheses, I need to say, do I have any addition, subtraction outside of my parentheses? I do not. Do I have any multiplication or division outside of my parentheses? I do. So in order to get rid of divided by -2, I'm going to multiply both sides by -2. So m plus 17, -2 over -2 cancels to just 1 equals 9 times -2 is 9 times 2 is 18. A positive and a negative are going to give me a negative. So then I'm left with m plus 17 equals negative 18. So negative 18 equals m plus 17. And now I can work inside my parentheses. So I have addition in my parentheses. So I need to use subtraction to get rid of addition. So minus 17 minus 17. So m, and then negative 18 minus 17 is going to give me, well, plus a negative. So I have two negatives. So we're going to add them and make a bigger negative. So 8 and 17 is 15. 1 and 1 is 2, plus the one we carried is 3. So negative 35. Awesome. So now I want you to go ahead and do these two real quick, and then we will work through them together, and then that's it, I swear. Awesome. So by now you should have already gone ahead and paused this and worked through them. If you have not, pause it and work through them now before I go over them, so you can sit there and watch as I work through them to see how you did. So we know that this top half is a parentheses, and we're still working backwards, because in order to undo our PEMDAS, our equation, in order to undo our equation, we have to work backwards. So before I can do that, that grouping created by that line on that top half, I have to get rid of the bottom. I had to get rid of that division. So in order to get rid of division, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to multiply. So times 16. So k minus 5 times 16 over 16. Well, 16 over 16 is 1. And then negative 3 times 16 is 48. Positive and a negative is going to give me a negative. So negative 48. And then when I drop my 16 over 16, which is just 1, I have negative 48 equals that k minus 5. So now that I'm done with that, I can work in my parentheses. So in order to get rid of subtraction, we add a positive and a negative. We're going to subtract and keep the bigger sign. So 48 is bigger, so it's negative. And then we are left with negative 43 equals k. Did you get that right? If you didn't, it's okay. All right, awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and I am going to do the next one. So again, this line right here creates this top half is a grouping. So that top half is parentheses. We're still working backwards, but before I can do my parentheses, I have to get rid of that division. We get rid of division with multiplication. So times 7, 7 over 7, p plus 20, 7 over 7 is just 1. And what I do to that left side, I have to do the right side. So times 7 on this right side as well. And negative 4 times 7, 4 times 7 is 28. Positive and negative give me a negative, so equals negative 28. We can drop the 7 divided by 7 to just 1. So 1 times p plus 20 is simply p plus 20. And I'm left with p plus 20 equals negative 28. All right, so to get rid of addition, we're going to go ahead, we're going to subtract. So left side, right side, and we are left with plus 20 minus 20 cancels. So p equals, and this becomes plus a negative. So when I have two negatives, we're just going to add them. They're going to become a bigger negative. So we're left with p equals negative 48. Did you get that? If you didn't, do you see what you did wrong? Awesome. All right. So today we talked about the two different kinds of two-step equations you can solve. We know with two-step equations we have to undo them, and in order to undo them we have to work through our order of operations order of operations backwards. In order to do that, whenever we see that fraction or that division bar that creates that top half as a group, and we still have to work backwards. So before I can get rid of my group, I had to get rid of my division. If I just had times something and then I had minus, I would have to again work backwards. So we would do addition and subtraction before we do our multiplication and division. All right, so that was a lot. We're going to be working on this today and tomorrow. So please You can get started on the homework. You can bring questions to our guided practice. We're going to be working on this today and tomorrow. So bring any and all questions you might have. All right, guys. Thank you. Have a great day.